He was a talking cat. Binky, well, he has an eye for the finer things in life. Binky likes to win. His name was Binky, and everybody remembered the name. And so the talking cat, Binky. The story of Binky and how he became a talking cat will one day be the source of great legends, no doubt. But Binky did not want to waste his precious gift. He knew that now that he could talk, the world was his oyster, because that was the barrier, the one thing that kept the felines beneath the humans. But now Binky could talk. It was a long story, but Binky managed to get a foothold in the voiceover field. His voice was useful. He could sell. His voice was magic. He was very good on radio. And his special human was of great assistance in this matter, as he was of great assistance in many matters. Binky did not do this alone, but Binky was now determined to make a very special use of his very special ability. Binky wasn't satisfied just being the voice. Binky knew he would have to come out and reveal himself for what he is, and introduce himself as a talking cat. Now, would he be taken seriously, or would it be a circus act? He was determined to be taken seriously. Joe Rogan wasn't interested, but there was one who was. Welcome back, Vermont and beyond. You're with Buzz Collier, and it's just you and I tonight. Buzz Collier with you on Vermont and beyond. It is about 12 minutes before midnight on the East Coast. Binky is standing by. He is talking to me through teleconference, and we're going to do something together. And so, Binky, let's just introduce you to the audience. You're Binky, and you are a voiceover professional. You do a show called Newsflash, and you've done this for some time, and I understand you've also done radio. And so, Binky, welcome to the program. Now, before we get started, let me stop and take a commercial break so we can sell in and find out all about you, Binky.
Call Buzz Collier. Call 1-800-929-1245. And now, here's Buzz!
Welcome back. I am Buzz Collier. This is Vermont and beyond. Beyond the borders of the beautiful state of Vermont on a 50-watt channel. We go all over the world sometimes. And tonight, wherever we're going to talk to Binky. As promised, he's the talking cat. Welcome to the program, Binky. First of all, how? How exactly, how? How did you become a talking cat? How did that happen?
Well, Buzz, that's a very good question. You see, I grew up with the humans around me.
Humans in my household were teachers. There was a school teacher, the human, and she taught the children very extensively at home, you see, and I was the cat, and I started paying attention. It was simple, and I learned the language as written. I could read, and then I learned to speak. I must admit, though, Buzz, that there was an interesting story that I probably should tell you about. Well, sure, we came here to talk to you, Binky, so certainly anything that you feel like you want to tell us, you go right ahead. Well, Buzz, my humans were varied. I had a school teacher, kind of like the mom, and then there was this young 20-year-old that played music, and he did all kinds of things, and one time he tried some mushrooms, psilocybin effect. You know what that's about. And so I did get that. I had some mushrooms, and I think that did help in my sudden ability to speak, because I could read and understand, and all of us cats understand a lot of English words because we're not stupid. But after that incident where I remember eating the mushrooms, because we eat a lot of, cats eat, we like to eat things. If it looks good, we eat it. And he had some mushrooms. They really were kind of good. And since that time, it's been like it is now. Well, BINKY, I find it fascinating that you are in the situation you're in, that you had a life-changing experience, and it perhaps had something to do with the psilocybin. It's such an unknown thing. We haven't studied it near enough. But BINKY, I do know a little bit about it. I do know that it activates serotonin receptors in the prefrontal cortex, and this is the part of the brain that affects mood, cognition, and perception, which of course also the area for speech as well. It does not always cause visual or auditory hallucinations. Instead, it distorts how some people or some users perceive objects. So BINKY, with your being a different set of eyeballs than a human, would you describe, if you can pinpoint a particular experience using psilocybin? Well, Buzz, obviously I didn't know what I was doing. I was just eating a mushroom. But I did notice a change, and of course, as I learned to speak and understand, the people that had the mushrooms were talked about their experiences, and they have all sorts of different stories, but they seem to be just more creative. I guess people, of course, musicians, BINKY, that would be something that would make a lot of sense. Now, it does not always cause visual or auditory hallucinations. It does distort how you perceive things. The quantity consumed, the past experiences, and the expectations, they can impact the experience, BINKY. So normally you took you're being a cat, the body weight, did anyone measure you out something, or you just kind of went at it? I more than likely took what would be considered extremely high dose, because mine was accidental. I was just eating this rather tasty mushroom. So apparently, I would have to say my experiences would probably on the high end of the dosage, certainly. Well, the effects kick in after about 30 minutes after taking, and they can last up to 4 to 6 hours, BINKY. Now, some people report sensory perception and thought patterns still being affected several days afterward. And did you have anything different than that? I think with my brain structure, it probably was different. It seemed like a dose to me once every 30 days keeps me on a pretty much even keel, almost as if it changes the reality. So there are many uses for rituals. Mystical and spiritual use date back past the pre-Columbian Mesoamerican area, time length, and even now. We're talking with BINKY. It's a talking cat, and he is on the show tonight, and one of my rare guests here on You and I from Vermont and beyond, Buzz Collier. All you callers, we couldn't make it possible to talk to BINKY, but if we ever have him on again, we might actually try that, because I can imagine that would be something that might be very well received. You could tell your friends you talked to a talking cat. And so, but tonight, we're not going to be able to talk to him in that manner. He is here on teleconference, and we're going to talk a bit with Binky, the talking cat. Actually, Binky and I actually worked radio in the same market. I'm pretty sure at the same time. I was at Tucson for XCL radio, and I believe Binky said he was in Albuquerque, WXTX. And so, yes, we've both done the radio gig. We're talking with Binky, and we both have done radio. I found that interesting. I'm Buzz Collier, and Binky is with us. We've waited for this. We found out about this just a couple days ago, and we had time to get the audience all primed. And a lot of my listeners are anxious to see what's really going on with this talking cat. And so, as promised, I have him here now. Well, Buzz, as I told you earlier, I had a school teacher as the mom of the house, and a really out there guitarist who was just really out there as far as what you might say is in there. And that's where we encountered the mushrooms. It doesn't sound like, I mean, from what I understood about your musician, he was also the station managers and got you your job, so he's a very responsible person. To put it in more perspective, as we discussed, some people may be uncomfortable with it because of it being a controlled substance in America and many places in the world. But we're talking about it from a chemical standpoint, and some things that we have learned about psilocybin. The debate goes on and on. But to have the contention that that chemical alone caused a cat to be able to talk is beyond simple. And we won't even go into that. However, it does appear to have some effect, Binky. So I was going to tell the audience that I had encountered this with some Native Americans who used some mushrooms and other things that basically contain psilocybin. And so I'm aware of it, and I've studied it. I do know, Binky, that it in humans, it's supposed to really affect the speech portion of the brain. So there's that. So, Binky, you can tell us a little bit about how often you did this. Well, Buzz, the frequency that Steve used was by the lunar cycle. He would try to cleanse on the lunar cycle. Well, Binky, I can assure you that's not out of line with the attitudes of the Native Americans. The chiefs used it as a solemn practice, and they did it on a monthly following the moon as well. So the moon, not that it has anything to do with psilocybin, but the moon cycle does appear to be a common interval of taking psilocybin into the body. Well, yes, Buzz, that would be my experience, that a 30-day interruption, or if you want to look at it like that, but a 30-day cycle, once every 30 days would be as close together as you'd ever want to do it. because the body has to recuperate because it is functioning at a very high level, and who knows, it just drains you for a little while, but if you use it intelligently, you can learn a lot during these cycles of expanded mind consciousness. Or you could look at funny colors. It depends on what you have in mind. Buzz Collier back with you. We have BINKY with us. We've been talking with BINKY this entire evening. And BINKY, we are got on the subject of psilocybin and its mushrooms and how it possibly, it's not assured, but possibly has contributed to his unique ability to speak. But the show we were going to do was to talk about that ability. He's a voiceover cat. He does a lot of things. You have a show, a YouTube show, BC, the voice in KC. I'm sorry, BINKY. That's fine. It's the voice in KC is where I'm a voiceover cat, and we actually just present it the way it is, and so that's what that is, Buzz. Yes, and so you've done that, and so certainly that's not your typical cat. Well, Buzz, I thank you for that. I feel like I've done a lot, but now that I'm in the voiceover field and have been as a long time, you learn people much more than you learn the felines or the cats, but you learn people. And but getting back to the psilocybin, Buzz, certainly we could talk about that because I find it a fascinating subject. Yeah, well, BINKY, I didn't come here prepared to talk about that in depth, but I do have some general knowledge, and we can certainly discuss it. As I said, my experience was with the Native Americans who used it in their solemn services because obviously it helps them think more clear. And so it's not like it's something out of the 1960s in some psychedelic experience. It's not, but that's how it's got the reputation. But certainly we will talk more about it. Perhaps, BINKY, we could line up a show. In fact, let's do that and talk about this subject, and we'll get our guys and get some real information for the audience and do a show about that. But for tonight, we may be out of time, but we're going to try to talk about this for a few more minutes and wrap up our show with BINKY the Talking Cat. Buzz Collier back with you tonight. We talked with BINKY the Talking Cat. Now, BINKY has to go, but we do have plans for another show, a follow-up show with BINKY the Talking Cat, and we'll be talking on that show about psilocybin and the fact that he has ingested it liberally, and it may have affected his ability to speak. It may have given it to him. So thank you, BINKY, for coming by tonight. Thank you very much for coming. It was a great pleasure to have you. Thank you, Buzz. It was a great pleasure to be here, and I will certainly look forward to our next visit. All right, thank you, BINKY, and you've been listening to Vermont and Beyond, you and I with Buzz Collier. Thanks so much for listening, and good night, everybody.
Ooh.